Okay, so now we're going to make the pastry, and for that I'm going to need to put 2 cups of flour in a bowl. And I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to mix that in. And now I'm going to add a cup of shortening. There. Now I'm going to cut this shortening up just a little bit so that it gets easier to mix into the flour. And I'm going to use the pastry cutter to cut the shortening into the flour. You sort of just use your wrist and twist a little bit to get this cut in, so you can see what I'm doing. And you want to keep cutting until the shortening is sort of down to about the size of little peas. And a couple of times you may need to clean your pastry cutter just to get the shortening off so you can work it into the flour. Alright, and when that's done, you just get the rest of the shortening and pastry off of the pastry cutter into your bowl. And now you've got a mixture that looks like this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add in some liquid so that it will bind, and we use vinegar for that. So you usually use between 3 and 5 tablespoons of vinegar, and I'm just going to start with a couple. You don't want it too moist, so that's why you go slowly adding in the vinegar. And then you just use your hand to work the shortening and vinegar and flour together. And your goal is to get it to make a dough that where you don't have flour sitting on the bottom of the bowl anymore. So that was not enough vinegar, so I'm going to add in about another tablespoon. And it's clumping together quite well now. I don't think we're going to need any more vinegar, so you can see that it's clumped together nicely in a dough. So I'm going to get this excess off my hands. This is the messy part. Okay, and now I'm just going to bring it all together into a ball. So you can see that it's now sort of rolled into a ball. So now what I need to do is I need to roll it out, and to do that I'm going to need flour. Now I like to use a pastry mat. They're made out of silicone because it helps to prevent the dough from sticking to the counter. But if you don't have one, you can just use the counter. So I've got my dough out. I'm going to just work it around a little bit here. Cover it with flour. And then I need to cut it in half, because 1/2 is going to be the bottom crust and 1/2 is going to be the top crust. So I'll just set the 1/2 aside. Get this sort of into a circle. And then I need to get my rolling pin. You need to make sure that you cover your rolling pin with flour so that the dough won't stick to the rolling pin. And you're just going to start rolling it out. You usually roll from the center outwards, trying to keep it even and in a circle. And you want to roll it just until it's big enough to cover the bottom and sides of a pie plate. So let's check this. Yeah, that looks pretty good, maybe just a tiny bit more. Okay, now you're going to use a long spatula to slide underneath the pastry to loosen it from the pastry mat. Okay, and then you're going to fold the dough in half and lay it over your pie plate. And then you're going to unfold it in the plate, and you're going to just sort of move it around so that it fills the pie plate and goes up the sides. And if you've got any excess dough, just trim it off with your fingers, and then you'll be able to add that in to use with your top crust. So I'm just shoving a little bit to make sure that it goes up the sides. If you've got any areas where you don't have quite enough, just use a little bit, press it in. There. So now we've got our pie crust for the bottom of the pie.